She had been sitting in seat 22C for 20 minutes before anyone noticed her uniform. It was pressed, immaculate, decorated with ribbons that most passengers couldn't name even if they tried. But on a crowded Tuesday afternoon flight from Dallas to Washington, nobody was trying. They were watching a woman who looked like she didn't belong. Colonel Mara Voss set her carry-on in the overhead bin without asking for help. She was 53 years old, silver-haired, and moved with the quiet economy of someone who had learned long ago that stillness was its own kind of power. She took her seat by the window, folded her hands, and looked out at the tarmac. Behind her, two men in business suits were already complaining to the flight attendant about the delay. "It's always something," one of them said loudly. "Always some last-minute military thing holding up real travelers." The flight attendant, a young woman named Denise, offered them a practiced smile and said nothing. Mara heard every word and said nothing either. She had spent 31 years learning that silence was not weakness. It was a weapon you only drew when necessary. The plane boarded fully. The man directly behind Mara, heavy cologne louder than necessary, leaned forward when he saw her rank insignia and snorted softly. "What branch?" he asked, not unkindly, but with the particular tone of someone who expected the answer to confirm his low expectations. "Air Force," she said. "Huh." He leaned back. "My cousin did 2 years. Couldn't hack it." He said it like it meant something about everyone who wore the uniform. Mara turned back to the window. Somewhere over Oklahoma, the flight attendant crouched beside her seat. "Colonel," Denise whispered, "I just want you to know. My brother came home because of people like you. Thank you." She was gone before Mara could respond. It was somewhere over Missouri that the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom with unusual gravity. He asked the cabin to remain calm. There was no emergency, he said, but they had been directed to adjust their flight path and prepare for an escort. Murmurs rippled through the rows. People pressed their faces against windows. And then everyone saw them. 2 F-16s, one on each wing, gleaming in the high afternoon sun like silver angels keeping pace. The pilot's voice returned, quieter now, almost reverent. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a distinguished passenger aboard today. By special coordination with the Department of Defense, we are being escorted at the request of the White House. Colonel Mara Voss, call sign Ghost Actual, is being received in Washington to be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her actions during 3 classified combat operations spanning 2 decades. She was nominated by unanimous vote of the Joint Chiefs. Colonel Voss, on behalf of the entire crew, it is an honor to carry you home." The cabin went completely silent. Then, from the back, someone began to clap. It spread forward like a wave, seat by seat, until the entire aircraft was on its feet. Denise was crying openly. Even the flight attendants at the front were pressing their hands together, faces bright. The man behind Mara said nothing for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed entirely. It had lost its edges. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For what I said earlier, I didn't know." Mara turned to look at him for the first time. His face was red. Not with embarrassment alone, but something deeper, the particular shame of a man who had been small when the moment asked him to be larger. She studied him for just a second, then gave a slow nod. "Now you do," she said, without coldness, without cruelty, just the simple, clean truth of it. She turned back to the window. The F-16s held their position, steady and perfect against the blue. She thought about the faces she carried. The young airmen she had pulled from burning wreckage, the missions that never made the news, the years her daughter had grown up with a mother who was more often absent than present. She thought about the price of service, how it was never paid all at once but in small, daily installments across a lifetime. When the plane landed at Reagan National, the jetway was lined with uniformed officers standing at attention. A general she had served under 20 years ago was waiting at the gate, his eyes bright. 2 younger officers flanked him, hands pressed to their foreheads in salute. Cameras were there, but Mara barely noticed them. She walked with the same steady economy she always had, no fanfare in her step, no performance in her bearing. Denise caught her arm gently just before the door. Ghost Actual, she said softly, testing the call sign on her tongue like something sacred. Why that name? Mara paused. A small, private smile crossed her face for just a moment. The first one the cabin had seen from her in the entire flight. Because I was always already there, she said, before anyone knew to look. She walked off the plane and into the light. And behind her, every single person in 22C and beyond sat quietly for a moment, each one privately reconsidering what they thought they knew about the strangers who moved through the world beside them.